Congressman Paul, it's nice to meet
Hi.
you. My name is Steve Grove. I'm from over at YouTube, the news and politics editor over there.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, welcome. You have quite the following on YouTube. We're excited you could...
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. More subscribers than any other candidate on the platform. Well, Congressman Paul, welcome to YouTube. We're so glad to have you here. And we're going to actually try something different today. We're going to show you some questions straight from YouTube users.
Hi, I'm Phil from Buffalo. Congressman Paul, you have publicly stated that you are in favor of abolishing the IRS and income tax. What methods then do you see as appropriate for revenue to run the federal government? Thank you.
Well, I'm not looking for a substitute. I want to get rid of the IRS, I want to get rid of the income tax, but I want to reduce the size and scope of government to the point where we don't need the income tax. We didn't have an income tax up until 1913, and we did quite well. But since we've had the income tax, government has grown by leaps and bounds, and it has allowed our government to get involved in things that they shouldn't be involved, policing our personal habits, policing the economy, and policing the world. If you don't want the government to do that, you don't need the income tax. So a lot of people ask me, what am I going to replace it with? I don't want to replace it with anything. I want to reduce it. But the responsible question is that, what are you going to do about all the spending? And my answer is we should cut the spending. We just don't need to cut the spending, because when government's allowed to do this, they do a great deal of harm and they don't really help us. I want to release all the creative energy I can and all the productive effort of individuals that are free to pursue their own adventure, and we certainly need to get the government out of the way. And under those conditions, you don't need an income tax. We should repeal the 16th Amendment.
Hi YouTube, I guess what I was wondering is, people are asking about Ron Paul, and I work in the environmental sector, and I'm wondering what his take is on environmental protections and how he thinks the Constitution best answers the question of environmental protection in the U.S.
Good. I think it's one of the challenges that libertarians and conservatives have, because I don't think they address that subject well enough and frequently enough. But if you accept the notion that free markets are beneficial to all of us and that we can relieve the poverty of the masses through capitalism and free markets, then you say, well, does it destroy the environment in the process? And absolutely not. Matter of fact, the freer the market is and the more respect you have for private property, the better the environment is protected. In the 19th century, during the early stage of the Industrial Revolution, there was a careless disregard for the environment. Governments and big business were in collusion. They did not care what they did to their neighbors. But there's a basic fundamental premise in a free market economy that protects private property, that you have no right whatsoever to pollute your neighbor's property. So in many ways, it's much stricter than the system that we have today by writing regulations and sending regulators in to check out what everybody's doing. The courts should honor private property. And the extreme opposite of this would be the more socialistic a country gets, the less respect they have for property. And if you look at what happened to the environment under the Soviet system, it was a total disaster. But property is much better taken care of when it's privately controlled. It's when the government gets control of it, they destroy it. The idea of the commons, and when everybody owns the land or the property, nobody owns it and nobody cares for it, and special interests get involved. So you want to get as much property into the hands of private owners because they have a self-interest in taking care of it. But the principle that we have to emphasize, you do not have a right to pollute your neighbor's property. You can't go next door and dump your garbage in their yard. Everybody knows that. But you shouldn't be able to dump any garbage in the air. You shouldn't be able to dump any garbage in the water. So I am convinced that if you had the right respect by all the legislators and the courts to protect private property, it would be the best method to protect the environment.
Congressman Paul, I'm Austin Hines, and I'm speaking to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma. You say that abortion legislation should be decided on the state level rather than the federal level. Does this mean that you believe the morality of the issue is not absolute and that each state should define what they believe on their own? If the Constitution provides a right to life, do we not also have the right to define when that life starts and ends on a federal level? It'd be interesting to hear what you have to say about this.
But I deal with the abortion issue like I deal with all acts of violence. I see the fetus as a a human being that has legal rights, has legal inheritance rights from the day of conception. I, as a physician, if I injure the fetus, I have liabilities. If you are in a car accident or if somebody commits a violent act and kills the fetus, they are liable and responsible. But all acts of violence under our Constitution are dealt with at the local level. Murder, second-degree, third-degree manslaughter, all these things are done locally, and they're not always easy to sort out. And that's what is the magnificence of our system and our Constitution, is that the more difficult the issue, the more local it should be for sorting out these difficult issues. So I would say yes, the states have the right and the authority to write the rules and regulations and the punishments for acts of violence. And I believe so strongly that this should be at the local level. Therefore, I would not support Roe versus Wade, but I certainly am absolutely opposed to the federal government funding abortion. But I cannot protect and fight for personal liberty if I don't fight for the right to life. And if you endorse abortion moments before delivery or in the third trimester, which is now legal, I, as a physician, could be paid for it. At the same time, we have devised a system here today that if the baby is born and the teenager or whomever throws the baby away, they're charged with murder. But if you are careless with this attitude, it's more than just a privacy issue and say, well, the privacy of the mother is the only concern. But no, it's the whether or not a living being is involved. If it were only the privacy issue, I believe our homes are our castles, and that government shouldn't have cameras there. They should never intrude. But I do not say that because our homes are our castles that we have a right to murder our children. Nobody really endorses that. So it's very hard intellectually to distinguish between the killing of an infant a minute before birth and a minute afterwards. And I think it deserves a lot of attention, but I also recognize it's difficult for a lot of people to sort this out, but that's why we really want the states to sort it out and not have one answer at the federal level. Because if you depend on the federal level to decide these issues, you end up saying, well, it's in the courts, the Supreme Court should rule, and they legislated through that Roe versus Wade incident. They actually got very involved in the details of the medical process of when and what abortions could be done. So I think our system is that you reject that notion, honor the commitment of the Constitution, and try to solve these difficult problems at the local level. And I am quite sure it will not be solved and the solutions will not be perfect. But we don't live in a perfect society. We have to accept the political process, which gives us the best answers.
One of your big tenets of your campaign is small government. So I thought to end the interview, we'd play a little game called Small Government Short Answer.
Oh, okay.
So here's a story. I will give you 5 questions, and each of these questions you have 15 seconds to answer. So,
okay.
You know, your small government candidate. These are short answers as well. So the first one comes from Sean Edwards in California. The question is, I'm going to time you here, so we'll keep you honest.
Okay, then there's a gong.
There's a gong. Well, there's not a gong. There should be, but there's at least a stopwatch. First question is, would you end the federal war on drugs?
Yes.
Wow, off to a great start. Freedom for USA, what is your position on the national ID card? Are you for any type of microchip on our people's skins?
Absolutely not. I'm not for any national ID card, and I think it's an atrocious invasion of our privacy.
Jim Britton asks, my 10-year-old daughter said it best. Let's just ask each of them, why do you want to be president of the United States? As an American citizen, why is the presidency your goal?
I want to restore the original intent of the Constitution, which maximizes individual liberty and restrains the government from doing the things that they shouldn't be doing.
Oliver C. Mitt asks, do you use your powers for good or for awesome?
I don't consider myself in the use of power. Hopefully, it's more like using influence and trying to explain why freedom works. So that I hope I have a good impact on.
Final question is from Roe Flowers, and the question is, who is Ron Paul?
Well, if I answer that, I'm Ron Paul, a physician who got sick and tired of what I was getting from the government, and I didn't want to drop out, and I didn't want to leave my country, and I used the freedoms that were left to express my opinions and try to change things through a more peaceful manner.
That was 15 seconds right on the button. Well, thank you, Congressman
Paul.
Paul.
Thank
really appreciate
you.
you spending some
It's
time
been
with
great.
us today. Great. A lot did.
And, you know, we talk about the monopoly control of the parties and that we are up against as grassroots candidates, but the truth is it's a political equalizer. In spite of
really
the
is.
pressure to have all your money and everything lined up for early primaries, nobody can fully understand yet how the internet may affect a whole generation. Right now, I am so excited about young people being involved. Young people right now that are still hearing our message are all of a sudden influencing their parents. And for so many years, I've heard, give up on the younger generation. All they do are play video games and they don't care and they're not interested. And they're excited about this. They're excited about the Constitution and personal liberty. They're excited about the economic issues and monetary issues. They hate the war, you know, these kind of things. So the young people really are assuming the responsibility for all the mess that's been created by previous generations. So quite frankly, I'm really excited about what's happening with the young people of this country.